Hello guys, welcome to Potter Paradox. So in this video, we will see what if Harry absorbed the Horcrux in his scar and gained Voldemort's knowledge. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Awakening. Harry Potter's summer had reached a new low. Even by Dursley standards, which wasn't saying much. 3 weeks since Sirius died. 3 weeks of nightmares. 3 weeks of his uncle's purple face screaming about freakishness whenever Harry woke up yelling. 3 weeks of his scar feeling like someone was taking a hot poker to his forehead. Tonight was worse. Harry sat bolt upright in bed, both hands clutching his forehead. The pain had gone from annoying to unbearable in the span of seconds. His scar burned white-hot, vision blurring as tears streamed down his face. "Shut up in there." Vernon's voice boomed through the wall. Harry couldn't have responded if he wanted to. His teeth clenched so hard he thought they might shatter. Something was happening, something worse than the usual Voldemort-induced migraines. This felt like his skull was being split open. His wand. He needed his wand. Harry fumbled blindly toward his nightstand, knocking over a glass of water in the process. His fingers closed around the familiar Hollywood just as another wave of pain hit. Arg! The scream tore from his throat before he could stop it. Thundering footsteps approached his door. "Boy! I'm warning you." The lock rattled as Vernon tried to force his way in, but Harry barely registered it. Images flashed through his mind: a cave by the sea, a magnificent castle on a mountain, a small shack overrun with snakes. Places he'd never been. People he'd never met. Spells he'd never heard of. "Make it stop," Harry whispered, rocking back and forth. His wand sparked dangerously in his grip. "Make it," the pain crescendoed. Harry felt something inside his head shift. Not breaking, not healing, but changing. Rearranging. Like puzzle pieces clicking into place. A surge of magic erupted from him. Every object in his tiny bedroom levitated. The light bulb exploded. The window shattered outward. Harry's back arched as if he'd been electrocuted, mouth open in a silent scream. Then everything went still. Harry collapsed back onto his bed, panting. The pain was gone. Not fading, not dulling, completely gone. For the first time in weeks, his head felt clear. Better than clear. Sharp. Focused. Like he'd been seeing the world through foggy glasses and someone had finally wiped them clean. Potter. Vernon had given up on the lock and was now attempting to break down the door. "What have you done now?" Harry sat up slowly, feeling oddly calm. His bedroom was a disaster zone. Books, clothes, and broken glass littered the floor. A cool breeze blew through the shattered window. "That's going to attract attention," Harry murmured. The words felt strange in his mouth, like someone else was speaking through him. He knew, without knowing how he knew, that the magical explosion would register at the Ministry. Death Eaters would be dispatched to investigate. They'd arrive in approximately 7 minutes. Wait. How did he know that? Harry shook his head, trying to clear it. New information swirled through his mind, as if someone had downloaded an encyclopedia directly into his brain. Spells. Potions. Names and faces of Death Eaters he'd never met. The layout of Malfoy Manor. The precise location of Voldemort's current hideout. "What the hell?" Harry whispered. The door finally gave way, revealing Uncle Vernon in striped pajamas, face purple with rage. "You," he bellowed, stepping over the threshold. "Destroying our property after everything." Harry raised his wand without thinking. Silencio. Vernon's mouth continued moving, but no sound emerged. His eyes bulged in shock as his hands flew to his throat. "I need you to listen very carefully," Harry said, his voice oddly calm. "Death Eaters are coming. Dark wizards. They'll kill all of you without a second thought. Get Petunia and Dudley and drive away. Now. Vernon stared at him in horror, still clutching his throat. Harry sighed. Fine. Finite incantatem. Now go. You're not allowed to do magic outside school. Vernon stammered, backing away. They'll expel you. That's really not important right now. Harry stood up, surprised at how steady he felt. Death Eaters. Coming here. To kill us. Get in the car and drive to Aunt Marge's. Don't come back for at least a week. Something in Harry's expression must have finally gotten through to Vernon, because he paled and backed out of the room. Harry heard him shouting for Petunia. Alone again, Harry clutched his head. What was happening to him? How did he suddenly know about the Death Eater response protocols? Or that Bellatrix Lestrange favored the Cruciatus curse followed by a cutting hex to the femoral artery? Or that Voldemort's current hideout was under a Fidelius charm with Peter Pettigrew as secret keeper? The Horcrux. It had to be the Horcrux in his scar. Somehow, the magical explosion had changed it. Not destroyed it, but... I absorbed it, Harry said aloud, the realization hitting him. I absorbed Voldemort's Horcrux. He should have been horrified. Instead, he felt a strange, detached curiosity. He had Voldemort's knowledge. His memories. And yet Harry was still... Harry. He still hated Voldemort. Still mourned Sirius. Still loved his friends. But he now knew exactly how to cast the Cruciatus curse. And the Imperius. And Avada Kedavra. He knew where Voldemort had hidden his other Horcruxes. Horcruxes. Plural. Voldemort had made more than one. The diary wasn't a fluke, it was part of a pattern. Harry closed his eyes and concentrated, sifting through the new information flooding his mind. The ring. The locket. The cup. The diadem. The snake. And me, Harry whispered. I was the sixth. The one he never meant to create. A car engine roared to life outside. The Dursleys were fleeing. Good. Harry had maybe 3 minutes before the Death Eaters arrived. He needed to prepare. With startling efficiency, Harry began gathering his belongings. He flicked his wand at his trunk. Pack. Everything flew into it neatly. Another flick shrunk it to the size of a matchbox. He pocketed it along with his invisibility cloak. Now for the hard part. Harry closed his eyes again, focusing on the foreign memories swirling in his head. Voldemort's knowledge of defensive magic was extensive. There were dozens of spells that could help in this situation, but one stood out. Corpus Nebulis, Harry whispered, tracing a complex pattern with his wand. The air around him shimmered slightly. Not invisible, but harder to focus on. A perception filter, not quite as effective as the disillusionment charm, but quicker to cast and more suited to combat situations. Harry positioned himself behind the door, waiting. He could sense them approaching, for magical signatures drawing nearer. Not full Death Eaters, he realized, but newer recruits sent to investigate the magical surge. Voldemort wouldn't waste his inner circle on what was probably just accidental magic. Pop. 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 For distinct apparition cracks sounded from the street outside. Harry heard hushed voices, then footsteps approaching the house. The front door creaked open. Upstairs, a male voice hissed. The signal came from upstairs. What about the Muggles? A woman asked. Fled. Car's gone. Just grab Potter and go. Harry gripped his wand tighter as 4 sets of footsteps climbed the stairs. His heart pounded, but his mind remained oddly calm, analyzing the situation with clinical detachment. 4 opponents. Probably inexperienced. He could stun them, bind them, and summon the order. Or he could kill them. The thought slipped into his mind with disturbing ease. Harry flinched. No. He wasn't a killer. That was Voldemort talking, not him. Wasn't it? The first Death Eater appeared in the doorway, a stocky man with a silver mask covering the upper half of his face. He raised his wand, surveying the destruction of Harry's room. Potter, he called, stepping further inside. Come out, wherever you are. The second Death Eater joined him, the woman Harry had heard earlier. He's not here, she said, lowering her wand slightly. We should check the other rooms. The magical signature was strongest here, the man insisted. He's close. I can feel it. Harry's muscles tensed. They were directly in front of him now, but the perception filter was working, their eyes slid past him without registering his presence. The third and fourth Death Eaters crowded into the doorway. Spreading out would be smarter, one of them suggested. Perfect. Harry raised his wand and thought, stupefy. 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 For jets of red light erupted from his wand in quick succession, striking each Death Eater before they could react. They dropped like stones, collapsing in a heap of black robes and silver masks. Harry stepped over them, examining his handiwork. Nonverbal casting. He'd never successfully performed nonverbal spells before, yet he just silently stunned 4 people in under 2 seconds. The knowledge of how to do it had simply been there. Available. Like recalling how to ride a bike. Incarcerus, he said, binding the unconscious Death Eaters with conjured ropes. Accio wands. Their wands flew into his outstretched hand. Harry pocketed the captured wands and checked the Death Eater's left forearms. Only one had the dark mark, the stocky man who'd entered first. The others were unmarked, probably new recruits eager to prove themselves. Harry felt a twinge of something almost like pity. They'd chosen the wrong side, and now they'd pay for it. There it was again, that cold, detached assessment that didn't feel entirely like him. Harry shook his head and focused on his next move. He needed to contact the Order. Sending a Patronus would be quickest, but the Death Eaters might have backup coming. Better to relocate first. Then it hit him, he could apparate now. Not legally, of course, but he knew how. The knowledge was right there in his mind, courtesy of Voldemort's memories. Harry closed his eyes, focusing on the precise mechanics of apparition, destination, determination, deliberation. He pictured the street outside Grimmauld Place in perfect detail. No. Wait. That was too risky. If these Death Eaters had backup coming, they might track his apparition. He needed to make multiple jumps to throw off any pursuit. Harry smiled grimly. That was definitely Voldemort's paranoia talking, but in this case, it was justified. He focused instead on the woods where the Quidditch World Cup had been held. He'd make his first jump there, then apparate to Hogsmeade, then finally to a spot near Grimmauld Place. Taking a deep breath, Harry turned on the spot and, crack. The sensation of being forced through a tight rubber tube was exactly as unpleasant as he'd anticipated. Harry stumbled slightly as he rematerialized in the deserted clearing, but remained standing. Not bad for a first apparition. Without pausing, he turned and disappeared again with another crack. Harry completed his 3 jumps in less than a minute, finally appearing in an alleyway a block from Grimmauld Place. He leaned against a brick wall, catching his breath. 3 consecutive apparitions would have exhausted most wizards, but he felt only mildly winded. His magic seemed stronger somehow. More accessible. After ensuring no one had followed him, Harry made his way toward number 12. As he approached, the familiar sensation of the Fidelius charm washed over him, the building squeezing into existence between numbers 11 and 13. Harry paused at the front steps, suddenly uncertain. How would the Order react to his transformation? Should he tell them everything, or hold some information back? Dumbledore, especially, might take drastic action if he knew Harry had absorbed a piece of Voldemort's soul. Before Harry could decide, the door flew open. Remus Lupin stood in the doorway, wand drawn. "Harry?" His eyes widened in shock. "What are you doing here?" "There was an alert, Death Eaters at Privet Drive. I handled it," Harry said simply. "Can I come in?" Lupin stepped aside, still staring at Harry with naked concern. "You handled it? What does that mean? Are you hurt?" Harry stepped into the gloomy hallway of Grimmauld Place, memories washing over him, both his own and, disturbingly, Voldemort's. The Dark Lord had never been here, but he knew of the Black family home, knew of its dark artifacts and hidden passages through his followers' descriptions. "I'm fine," Harry said, turning to face Lupin. "Better than fine, actually. Is anyone else here?" "Molly and the children. Tonks. A few others." Lupin studied Harry's face intently. "Harry, what happened? You look different." Harry wasn't surprised. He felt different. Like he'd aged a decade in a single night. "It's complicated. We should talk in private." Lupin nodded slowly. "The study, then. I'll gather the others." "Just the adults for now," Harry said firmly. "I don't want Ron and Hermione to, Harry." "Too late." Hermione's voice rang out from the top of the stairs, followed by the thunder of multiple pairs of feet racing down toward him. She flung herself at him in a tight hug, nearly knocking him over. "We just got word there were Death Eaters at your house. Are you okay? How did you escape? Why didn't you wait for the order?" Ron appeared behind her, equally concerned but less physically demonstrative. "Blimey, mate. You're all right." Harry extricated himself from Hermione's embrace, noting with a detached part of his mind how her scent triggered purely Harry emotions, friendship, loyalty, affection, rather than anything from Voldemort's consciousness. That was a relief. "I'm okay," he assured them. "Really? But I need to talk to the Order first, then I'll explain everything." Hermione pulled back slightly, her brow furrowing as she examined him. "You seem different." Harry met her gaze steadily. "I am different. But I'm still me, Hermione. I promise." "What's that supposed to mean?" Ron asked, bewildered. "Later," Harry said firmly. "Please. This is important." Something in his tone must have convinced them, because both nodded reluctantly. "The study, then," Lupin repeated, leading the way. "Hermione, Ron, please inform the others that Harry's safe. We'll call you when we're ready." Harry followed Lupin down the hallway, acutely aware of his friends' worried gazes on his back. The door to the study closed behind them with a soft click. "Sit," Lupin said, gesturing to a worn armchair. "I'll call the others." While Lupin knelt by the fireplace, Harry took in his surroundings. The study had belonged to Sirius's father, according to the memories now in his head. That cabinet along the wall contained cursed objects the Order had failed to dispose of properly. The desk had a hidden compartment triggered by pressing 3 specific carvings in sequence. The bookshelf held several rare dark arts texts that would make Hermione's eyes pop out if she knew they were there. Harry's stomach lurched. This wasn't his knowledge. He shouldn't have it. "Dumbledore's coming," Lupin said, turning back from the fireplace. "Moody and Kingsley too. Now, can you tell me what happened, or would you prefer to wait?" Harry considered. "I'll wait for Dumbledore. It's complicated, and I'd rather not repeat myself." Lupin nodded, settling into a chair opposite Harry. An uncomfortable silence stretched between them. "You really do seem different," Lupin finally said. "Your mannerisms, the way you're holding yourself. What happened, Harry?" Harry sighed. "My scar happened. The connection with Voldemort. It changed tonight." Before Lupin could press further, the fireplace flared green, and Albus Dumbledore stepped gracefully into the room. His bright blue eyes found Harry immediately, widening slightly in surprise. "Harry, my boy. You're safe." Two more flares brought Moody and Kingsley in quick succession. Moody's magical eye whirled wildly before fixing on Harry with suspicious intensity. "Potter," he growled. "For stunned Death Eaters found at your residence. Ministries in an uproar. Explain." Harry straightened in his chair. "My scar has been hurting all summer. Tonight it got worse. Much worse. There was a magical explosion of some kind. I think," he hesitated, glancing at Dumbledore. "I think the piece of Voldemort that was in my scar has been absorbed. Integrated. I have his knowledge now. His memories." Dead silence fell over the room. Dumbledore went very still, his expression unreadable. Moody's magical eye stopped spinning, focusing with laser intensity on Harry's forehead. Kingsley sucked in a sharp breath. Lupin simply looked confused. "Piece of Voldemort?" he asked. "What do you mean?" Dumbledore raised a hand. "Perhaps we should verify Harry's claim before discussing further." He drew his wand. "May I?" Harry nodded, though a part of him, a new, wary part, assessed exactly how quickly he could disarm Dumbledore if necessary. The thought disturbed him. Dumbledore waved his wand in complex patterns, murmuring spells Harry now recognized as advanced diagnostic charms. Golden light surrounded Harry briefly, then shifted to blue, then purple, before fading entirely. "Fascinating," Dumbledore murmured. "The magical signature is unmistakably changed. A blend of Harry's natural magic and something else. Yet the dark taint I previously detected appears to have been neutralized." "English, Albus," Moody growled. "Harry appears to be telling the truth," Dumbledore said simply. "His magical core has undergone a significant transformation. The scar, which once contained a fragment of Voldemort's essence, now shows no trace of active dark magic. However, Harry's own magic has been altered, presumably incorporating aspects of what was previously contained in the scar." "Is it dangerous?" Lupin asked, his voice tight with concern. "That remains to be seen," Dumbledore said, his eyes never leaving Harry's face. "Harry, what exactly do you now know?" Harry took a deep breath. "Everything. Well, everything Voldemort knew up until he tried to kill me as a baby. I know about his childhood. His time at Hogwarts. The Chamber of Secrets. The creation of his first Horcruxes." He paused, noting how Dumbledore flinched slightly at the word. "Yes, I know what they are now. I know he made 6 intentionally. The diary was one. There's also Slytherin's locket, Hufflepuff's cup, Ravenclaw's diadem, the Gaunt family ring, and his snake, Nagini." Dumbledore sank heavily into a nearby chair, his expression troubled. "And you can access this information freely? Without pain or difficulty?" Harry nodded. "It's like remembering things I learned in school. The information is just there when I need it. I can differentiate between my memories and his, though. I still know who I am." "For now," Moody said darkly. Harry's temper flared. "I'm not turning into him. I still hate everything he stands for. I still care about my friends. I just know a lot more spells now." "The Death Eaters," Kingsley prompted. "Tell us what happened." Harry explained the night's events, his escalating pain, the magical explosion, warning the Dursleys, preparing for the Death Eaters, and his escape via apparition. "You operate?" Kingsley asked, impressed despite himself. "Without training?" "I had the knowledge," Harry said simply. "It was just a matter of implementing it." "That's what concerns me," Dumbledore said quietly. "The ease with which you're accessing and utilizing Voldemort's knowledge. The human mind is not designed to accommodate 2 lifetimes of memories, Harry. There will be consequences." "Like what?" Harry challenged. "I'm fine. Better than fine. I can finally fight back now. I know his weaknesses. I know where the Horcruxes are. I can end this. And that attitude, Dumbledore said, is precisely what worries me. The Harry Potter I know would be more cautious about such a transformation. More concerned about the ethical implications of possessing knowledge gained through dark magic and suffering. Harry flushed. I'm still concerned. I'm just practical about it. The knowledge is there, I might as well use it to defeat him. Even if it changes who you are in the process. Dumbledore asked softly. Harry had no answer for that. We need to monitor him, Moody declared. Constant surveillance. If he starts showing signs of turning, we'll need to contain him. I'm not going to turn. Harry snapped. And I'm sitting right here, so stop talking about me like I'm not in the room. The boy's right, Kingsley said. We should be discussing with him, not about him. He turned to Harry. What do you want to do with this knowledge? Harry considered the question carefully. Hunt down the Horcruxes. Train to fight Voldemort. Protect my friends. End this war before more people die. Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. Noble goals. But the methods matter, Harry. The path we take defines us as much as the destination we seek. I know, Harry said. I don't plan to start using unforgivables or torturing people for information. But I'm not going to ignore useful knowledge just because it came from him. Perhaps, Dumbledore suggested, we should test the limits of this new knowledge. In a controlled environment. Harry nodded. That makes sense. Tomorrow, then. For now, you should rest. This transformation has undoubtedly taken a toll, whether you feel it yet or not. Harry wanted to argue that he felt fine, but decided it wasn't worth the fight. What about Ron and Hermione? What do I tell them? Dumbledore exchanged glances with the other adults. A simplified version of the truth, perhaps. That your scar connection has granted you certain insights into Voldemort's knowledge. No need to mention Horcruxes or soul fragments just yet. Harry didn't like it, but nodded anyway. He'd tell Ron and Hermione everything eventually, they deserved to know, but maybe not tonight. He was still processing it himself. Get some rest, Harry, Lupin said, rising. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. Harry stood, suddenly aware of a bone-deep exhaustion creeping over him. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him drained. I'll sleep in Sirius's old room, if that's okay. A shadow passed over Lupin's face at the mention of Sirius. Of course. Harry left the study, feeling the weight of the adults' gazes on his back. They didn't trust him. Fair enough, he wasn't entirely sure he trusted himself right now. Ron and Hermione were waiting in the hallway, practically vibrating with impatience. Mrs. Weasley hovered nearby, wringing her hands anxiously. Harry, she exclaimed, rushing forward to envelop him in a crushing hug. Thank goodness you're safe. We were so worried when we heard. I'm fine, Mrs. Weasley, Harry assured her, gently extracting himself. Just tired. Of course, dear, of course. You must be exhausted. Have you eaten? I can whip something up in no time, I'm not hungry, Harry said. I just need some sleep. And maybe a talk with Ron and Hermione first. Mrs. Weasley looked like she wanted to object, but nodded reluctantly. Don't stay up too late. You've all had enough excitement for one night. She retreated toward the kitchen, leaving Harry alone with his friends. Upstairs, Harry said quietly. My room. They followed him silently up the creaking stairs to the room Harry had shared with Ron the previous summer. Once inside, Hermione cast a quick silencing charm on the door. Okay, spill, she demanded. What really happened? And don't say nothing, because you're acting strange. Harry sank onto one of the beds, suddenly aware of how much had changed in the last few hours. How could he possibly explain? My scar, he began slowly. You know it connects me to Voldemort. Tonight, something happened. The connection changed. I can access his knowledge now. Spells, memories, information. Ron's jaw dropped. Bloody hell. Hermione sat down hard on the opposite bed. That's not possible. Is it? Apparently it is, Harry said wryly. Because it's happening. But how? Hermione pressed. What exactly occurred? Harry sighed. My scar's been hurting worse than ever all summer. Tonight it felt like my head was splitting open. There was a magical explosion in my room. When it stopped, I could suddenly know things. Things Voldemort knows. Like what? Ron asked, curiosity overriding caution. Spells. Dark ones, mostly. The layout of Death Eater hideouts. Names of his followers. Harry hesitated. I operate here, Ron. 3 jumps in a row. I've never even had a lesson, but I knew exactly how to do it. Ron whistled, impressed and alarmed in equal measure. Hermione's brow furrowed. This can't be safe, Harry. Having his knowledge in your head, it could influence you. Change you. The Order's concerned about that too, Harry admitted. Dumbledore's going to run some tests tomorrow. But how do you feel? Hermione pressed. Do you feel like yourself? Harry considered the question carefully. Mostly. I still care about the same things. Still hate Voldemort. Still. He glanced at his friends. Still care about you both. But I do feel different. Calmer, in some ways. More strategic. I handled those Death Eaters without panicking at all. You fought Death Eaters? Ron exclaimed. By yourself? Harry nodded. 4 of them. They weren't expecting me to be ready. I stunned them, tied them up, and left them for the Order. That's, wow, Ron said, clearly impressed. Hermione looked less enthusiastic. It's not like you to be so calm in danger. You're usually more reckless? Harry suggested with a small smile. I was going to say passionate, Hermione corrected. You feel things deeply. That's not a bad thing. I still feel things, Harry assured her. I'm just processing differently. It's hard to explain. An uncomfortable silence fell between them. So what now? Ron finally asked. I mean, this is weird, mate, but it could be useful, right? You knowing all his secrets and stuff. That's what I told the Order, Harry agreed. I know things that could help us defeat him. The problem is, they don't fully trust that I'm still me. Are you? Hermione asked softly. The bluntness of her question took Harry aback. Yes, he said firmly. I'm still Harry. Just with some extra baggage up here. He tapped his temple. Hermione studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I believe you. But be careful, Harry. Knowledge isn't neutral, especially knowledge gained this way. It can shape how you think. I know, Harry said. I'm being cautious. But I'm not going to ignore information that could help end this war, either. Ron cleared his throat awkwardly. So, what kind of spells do you know now? Harry smirked. Want a demonstration? Ron nodded eagerly. Hermione looked apprehensive but curious. Harry drew his wand and pointed it at a quill lying on the desk. Without speaking a word, he levitated it, transformed it into a small bird, duplicated it into 3 identical birds, changed their color from brown to bright blue, then vanished all 3 with a final flick. Ron's mouth hung open. That was bloody brilliant. Nonverbal casting is supposed to be really hard. It is, Hermione said, eyeing Harry with a mix of admiration and concern. We don't study that until 6th year, and most students struggle with it for months. Harry shrugged. It just feels natural now. The knowledge of how to do it is right there. What else can you do? Ron asked eagerly. Harry hesitated. Most of the spells he'd acquired knowledge of weren't ones he should be demonstrating casually. A lot of it is dark magic, Ron. Not stuff I want to practice. Oh. Ron looked disappointed but understanding. Right. Makes sense. Hermione's expression had grown increasingly troubled. Harry, this is serious. If the magical community finds out you've somehow acquired you-know-whose magical knowledge, they'll panic. The Ministry might even try to. I don't know, detain you or something. I know, Harry said grimly. That's why we're keeping this quiet for now. Just the Order knows, and now you too. We won't tell anyone, Ron promised immediately. Hermione nodded in agreement. Of course not. But you should be prepared for how people might react if it does get out. Even people who know you might be frightened. I'll cross that bridge when I come to it, Harry said, suddenly feeling the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him. Look, can we continue this tomorrow? I'm dead on my feet. Of course, Hermione said, rising quickly. You should rest. Your mind needs time to process everything that's happened. Ron stood as well. Yeah, get some sleep, mate. We'll talk more tomorrow. After they left, Harry collapsed back onto the bed, not bothering to undress. His mind raced despite his physical exhaustion. So much new information crowded his thoughts, begging to be examined, catalogued, understood. Voldemort had created 6 Horcruxes intentionally. The diary was one, already destroyed. The others were hidden in locations of personal significance to Voldemort. The cup in Bellatrix Lestrange's Gringotts vault. The locket in a cave by the sea, protected by inferi. The diadem in the Room of Requirement at Hogwarts itself. The ring in the ruins of the Gaunt Shack. And Nagini, always by Voldemort's side. Harry could find them now. Destroy them. End this. But a small voice in the back of his mind whispered caution. What if this knowledge was changing him already? What if using it only accelerated the process? Harry closed his eyes, trying to quiet his racing thoughts. Sleep would help. Everything would look clearer in the morning. As he drifted off, images flashed behind his eyelids, a handsome boy opening a hidden chamber beneath a school, a young man hiding a diadem in a cluttered room, a dark-haired wizard slipping a locket into a basin of poisonous liquid. Harry Potter slept, and for the first time in weeks, did not dream of Sirius falling through the veil. Instead, he dreamed of Horcruxes and hidden places, of dark magic and ancient artifacts. And somewhere in Britain, Lord Voldemort woke with a start, a strange emptiness echoing where a connection had once been. The next morning, Harry woke with a jolt, momentarily disoriented. The ceiling above him was unfamiliar, not the pristine white of Privet Drive nor the comforting canopy of his Hogwarts four-poster. Then memory rushed back. Grimmauld Place. Sirius's room. And the events of last night. Harry sat up slowly, taking stock. His mind felt clearer than it had in years, despite the influx of new memories and knowledge. The constant low-grade headache that had been his companion since Voldemort's return was gone. His scar, when he touched it gingerly, felt like nothing more than a raised line of flesh. No pain. No burning. He stood and stretched, surprised to find his muscles ached less than expected after multiple apparitions and a magical explosion. Either his physical condition had improved along with his magical abilities, or he was still riding the adrenaline high of his transformation. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Harry. Hermione's voice called. Are you awake? Breakfast is ready. Coming, he replied, suddenly aware of his rumpled clothes. He'd slept in yesterday's outfit. Give me 5 minutes to change. Okay. Mrs. Weasley says to hurry before Ron eats everything. Harry smiled at the normalcy of the comment. Some things never changed, no matter how much he did. After a quick change and an even quicker attempt to tame his unruly hair, Harry headed downstairs. The kitchen of Grimmauld Place was alive with activity. Mrs. Weasley bustled around the stove while Ron, Hermione, Ginny, and the twins sat at the table devouring what looked like enough food for a small army. "Harry, dear!" Mrs. Weasley exclaimed, rushing over to embrace him. "How did you sleep? You look better this morning. Sit, I've kept a plate warm for you." Harry allowed himself to be guided to a chair between Ron and Hermione. A heaping plate of eggs, bacon, and toast appeared before him. "Thanks, Mrs. Weasley," he said sincerely. "This looks great." He became aware of Ginny and the twins staring at him curiously. "What?" he asked, suddenly self-conscious. "Nothing," Fred said quickly. "Just wondering what's different about you," George added. "Did you get taller?" Fred suggested. "New glasses?" George wondered. "Actually, it's," Ron began, but Hermione kicked him under the table. "It's nothing," Harry said smoothly. "Just happy to be away from the Dursleys, that's all." Ginny narrowed her eyes, clearly not buying it, but didn't press further. Harry tucked into his breakfast, suddenly ravenous. The magical exertion of the previous night had left him starving. As he ate, he marveled at how differently the world looked through his new perspective. The kitchen, once merely a gloomy gathering place, now revealed hidden details, the subtle protective enchantments woven into the walls, the faint magical signatures of previous spellwork, the lingering traces of dark magic clinging to objects the Order had failed to properly cleanse. "Don't you think, Harry?" Hermione was saying. Harry blinked, realizing he'd missed part of the conversation. "Sorry, what?" "I said, Dumbledore will probably want to start testing your condition right after breakfast," Hermione repeated carefully. "Don't you think?" "Probably," Harry agreed, noting how she'd avoided mentioning specifics in front of the others. He seemed eager to understand what happened. "What condition?" Ginny asked immediately. "Are you sick?" "No," Harry said firmly. "Just, something happened with my scar. Nothing to worry about." "Nothing to worry about?" George echoed incredulously. "Death Eaters showed up at your house." "Dad told us this morning," Fred explained, seeing Harry's surprise. "Said you handled them yourself before the Order could even arrive." Harry shot a glance at Mrs. Weasley, who looked distinctly uncomfortable. "It wasn't as dramatic as it sounds. I just got lucky." "For stunned Death Eaters isn't luck, mate," Ron said, unable to contain his pride in his friend's accomplishment. "That's skill. What exactly happened to your scar?" Ginny pressed, clearly unwilling to let the subject drop. Harry sighed. They'd find out eventually, better to control the narrative now than have rumors spread. "The connection between me and Voldemort changed. I can access some of his knowledge now. Spells and things." Silence fell over the kitchen. Even Mrs. Weasley had stopped stirring the pot on the stove to stare at him. "Blimey," Fred finally said. "Wicked," George added, though he looked more concerned than impressed. Ginny had gone pale. Like the diary," she whispered. Harry winced. Of course that would be her first thought, after her experience with Tom Riddle's memory. "No," he assured her quickly. "I'm still me. I'm in control. It's more like having access to a library of information. I can choose what to use." "Is it safe?" Ginny asked, her voice small. "Dumbledore's going to run tests today," Harry said. "But I feel fine. Better than fine, actually." "Well," Mrs. Weasley said briskly, clearly attempting to restore normalcy, "eat up, all of you. Plenty to do today. The drawing room still needs dedoxying, and those curtains in the upstairs hallway are starting to move on their own again." The twins exchanged gleeful looks. Actually, Mrs. Weasley, Harry said, Dumbledore wanted to see me this morning. About my condition. Of course, dear, she said, looking relieved. The others can handle the chores. A chorus of good-natured grumbling rose from the Weasley siblings. Harry finished his breakfast quickly, eager to begin testing the limits of his new knowledge. As he was helping clear the table, the fireplace in the adjacent room flared green, announcing an arrival. "That'll be Dumbledore," Mrs. Weasley said. "Off you go, Harry. The rest of you, upstairs to the drawing room. Those doxies won't spray themselves." Harry found Dumbledore in the study, examining the bookshelves with apparent interest. The headmaster turned as Harry entered, his blue eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. "Ah, Harry. Right on time. How are you feeling this morning?" "Good," Harry said. "Better than I expected, actually. My scar doesn't hurt at all anymore." "Fascinating," Dumbledore murmured. "The connection appears to have been fundamentally altered. I wonder." He drew his wand. "May I?" Harry nodded, submitting to another round of diagnostic spells. This time, he recognized them, revealing charms designed to detect dark magic, possession, mental tampering, and soul fragmentation. "Remarkable," Dumbledore said as the last spell faded. "The fragment that once resided in your scar has indeed been, integrated is perhaps the best term. It no longer exists as a separate entity, yet its essence has merged with your own." "Is that dangerous?" Harry asked, though he already knew the answer. The knowledge was there in his mind. A Horcrux, once absorbed rather than destroyed, would confer certain abilities while gradually influencing the absorber's personality. "Potentially," Dumbledore confirmed. "Though I confess this is uncharted territory. A living Horcrux is unprecedented enough, the absorption of one is beyond anything recorded in magical history." Harry blinked. "You knew that I was a Horcrux?" Dumbledore sighed heavily. "I suspected. I had hoped to find another explanation, but your connection to Voldemort was too profound to be explained by a mere magical backlash." Anger flared in Harry's chest, a very Harry emotion, not influenced by Voldemort's memories. "And you didn't tell me?" "I wanted to protect you," Dumbledore said simply. "And I had hoped to find a solution that didn't require my death," Harry finished flatly. The knowledge was there in his mind. A Horcrux could only be destroyed by damaging its container beyond magical repair. For living containers, that meant death. "Yes," Dumbledore admitted softly. "Though this new development may have rendered that concern moot. The Horcrux appears to have been neutralized, though not in the manner I would have expected." Harry took a deep breath, forcing the anger down. "It wouldn't help now. So what happens next? How do we test this?" "I've prepared a series of examinations," Dumbledore said, gesturing to a table set up at one end of the study. Various objects lay upon it, books, small artifacts, vials of potion. "First, I'd like to assess the extent of your new knowledge. Then, we'll examine how it integrates with your existing magical abilities. Finally, we'll need to determine if there are any side effects to this transformation." Harry nodded, approaching the table. "Let's start." The next several hours were among the most intellectually demanding of Harry's life. Dumbledore tested him on obscure magical theories, complex spell formulations, ancient runic sequences, and potions recipes that would have made even Hermione's head spin. To Harry's own amazement, he knew the answers to nearly all of Dumbledore's questions. Not just vague concepts, but specific details, dates, names, precise incantations, exact measurements. "Remarkable," Dumbledore murmured after Harry had correctly explained the 15 principal exceptions to Gamp's law of elemental transfiguration, something only master-level transfiguration scholars typically knew. "Your access to Tom's knowledge appears complete, at least up to the point of his attempt on your life as an infant. It's not just theoretical knowledge," Harry pointed out. "I can perform spells I've never been taught." He demonstrated by conjuring a flock of ravens that circled the room before vanishing in puffs of black smoke, a bit of magic that required both complex transfiguration and conjuration skills far beyond Newt level. Indeed. Dumbledore's expression grew troubled. Which brings us to our next test. Harry, I must ask, do you now possess knowledge of dark magic? The Unforgivables, for instance. Harry hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes. I know the incantations, the wand movements, the intent required. I know how Voldemort used them. And do you feel drawn to this knowledge? Tempted to explore it? Harry considered the question carefully. Not exactly. I'm aware of it, like I'm aware of where the kitchen is in this house. I know how to get there, what's inside, but I don't feel compelled to go there unless I have a reason. An apt analogy, Dumbledore said, looking somewhat relieved. And what would constitute a reason to access this dark knowledge, in your view? Self-defense, Harry said promptly. Protection of others. Defeating Voldemort. Not curiosity. Not the desire to test your limits. Harry shifted uncomfortably. Maybe a little. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious about what I can do now. But I don't have any desire to hurt people or use dark magic for its own sake. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. I believe you, Harry. But intentions can shift gradually, often without our noticing. The dark arts have a way of corrupting even the purest heart. We must remain vigilant. I know, Harry said. I'm not planning to start throwing Cruciatus curses around, Professor. I understand the risks. Do you? Dumbledore asked softly. Truly. Tom Riddle began as a brilliant, ambitious boy who sought knowledge for what he believed were legitimate reasons. Power to protect himself. To right perceived wrongs. To change a world he found lacking. The slope from noble intentions to darker purposes is more gradual than most realize. Harry bristled. I'm not Tom Riddle. No, Dumbledore agreed. You are not. Your capacity for love and compassion far exceeds his. But you now possess his knowledge, his magical understanding. We would be fools to ignore the potential influence. Harry wanted to argue further, but found he couldn't. Dumbledore wasn't wrong. Already, Harry had noticed subtle shifts in his thinking, a new pragmatism, a willingness to consider more ruthless solutions to problems. Nothing drastic, but noticeable. So what do we do? He asked instead. We adapt, Dumbledore said simply. We use this unexpected development to our advantage while monitoring carefully for any concerning changes. And we focus on the task at hand, the destruction of Voldemort's remaining Horcruxes. Harry perked up at this. I know where they are. We could start hunting them immediately. Indeed, Dumbledore said, his eyes twinkling with renewed purpose. And that is precisely what we shall do. But first, one final test. He withdrew a small mirror from his robes and placed it on the table before Harry. It wasn't an ordinary mirror, the surface swirled with silvery mist, reminiscent of a pensieve. This is a reflection of truth, Dumbledore explained. A rare magical artifact that shows the viewer not their physical appearance, but the current state of their soul. I'd like you to look into it, Harry, and tell me what you see. Harry swallowed nervously. What should I expect to see? If all is well, you should see yourself, perhaps with some visual representation of your new knowledge, but fundamentally unchanged. If there is cause for concern. Dumbledore trailed off. I'll see Voldemort, Harry finished grimly. Or some amalgamation, Dumbledore confirmed. Are you willing? Harry nodded, steeling himself. He leaned forward and gazed into the misty surface of the mirror. For a moment, he saw nothing but swirling silver. Then, slowly, a figure emerged. It was Harry, his unruly black hair, green eyes, lanky frame, but with subtle differences. His eyes held a depth of knowledge that seemed impossible for someone his age. A faint aura surrounded him, mostly golden but shot through with threads of dark red that pulsed like veins. And his famous scar had changed, no longer an angry red lightning bolt, but a silvery mark that seemed to shimmer with contained power. "I see myself," Harry reported, still studying his reflection. "But different. My eyes look older. There's an aura around me, mostly gold but with some red in it. And my scar is silver now, not red." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "Better than I feared, though not without concerning elements. The red threads likely represent Tom's influence, present but not dominant. The silver scar suggests transformation rather than corruption. You remain essentially yourself, Harry, though changed by what you've absorbed." Harry drew back from the mirror, relieved. "So we can move forward with the Horcruxes?" "Yes," Dumbledore agreed. "Though with caution. I believe our next step should be to retrieve the ring. According to your new knowledge, where precisely is it located?" Harry closed his eyes, sifting through Voldemort's memories. "The Gaunt Shack, near Little Hangleton. It's hidden under the floorboards, protected by several dark curses. One of them is particularly nasty, a wasting curse that spreads rapidly from point of contact. Nearly impossible to contain once triggered." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. "Most illuminating. Without that specific knowledge, I might have attempted to retrieve the ring myself, with potentially disastrous consequences." "You would have tried to wear it," Harry said, the knowledge suddenly clear in his mind. "The ring contains the Resurrection Stone. One of the deathly hallows you've been searching for." Dumbledore went very still. "You know of the hallows?" Harry nodded. Voldemort knew the legend, though he never connected it to the ring. He valued it only as a family heirloom and a suitable vessel for his Horcrux. "Remarkable," Dumbledore murmured. "The depth of your knowledge continues to surprise me." "Yes, Harry, I have long searched for the hallows. A personal quest, you might say. To see your sister again," Harry said softly, then immediately regretted it as pain flashed across Dumbledore's face. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "No," Dumbledore interrupted, his voice steady despite the lingering hurt in his eyes. "It's better that it's out in the open. Yes, I sought the hallows initially to master death, but later, to see Ariana once more. To seek forgiveness." An uncomfortable silence fell between them. "We should plan our retrieval of the ring," Harry finally said, changing the subject. "I know the curses protecting it. I can dismantle them safely." Dumbledore nodded, visibly pulling himself together. "Very well. We shall leave tomorrow morning. Today, I suggest you rest and continue adjusting to your new perspective. Perhaps spend time with your friends. Human connection will be vital in maintaining your sense of self." "Ron and Hermione know some of it," Harry said. "Not everything, but enough. They're worried, but supportive." "As true friends would be," Dumbledore said with a small smile. "Treasure them, Harry. They may well be your strongest anchor in the days ahead." After Dumbledore left, Harry found himself wandering the gloomy hallways of Grimmauld Place, lost in thought. The testing had confirmed what he'd already suspected: he'd gained enormous knowledge and power, but at a price not yet fully understood. The influence of Voldemort's consciousness on his own remained a troubling unknown. He found Ron, Hermione, and Ginny in the drawing room, finishing up their dedoxing efforts. All three looked up as he entered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. "How'd it go?" Ron asked immediately. Harry shrugged. "About as expected. Dumbledore confirmed I've got Voldemort's knowledge up to when he tried to kill me as a baby. We're going after one of his Horcruxes tomorrow." "Horcruxes?" Hermione repeated, her brow furrowing. "I've never heard of those." "Objects where Voldemort hid pieces of his soul," Harry explained. "That's how he survived when the killing curse rebounded. As long as the Horcruxes exist, he can't truly die." Hermione looked horrified. that's terrible magic. How many did he make? 6, intentionally, Harry said. The diary was 1. I destroyed that in second year without knowing what it was. There are 5 others. And you know where they are? Ginny asked quietly. She'd gone pale at the mention of the diary. Harry nodded. Thanks to this. He tapped his scar. I know where they are, what protects them, how to destroy them. That's good then, isn't it? Ron said encouragingly. We can finish him off properly this time. It's not that simple, Hermione cautioned. Harry, this knowledge came from Voldemort himself. How can we be sure it's reliable? What if it's a trap? It's not, Harry said confidently. I can tell the difference between accurate memories and deceptions. Voldemort never intended anyone to access this information, there was no reason for him to falsify it within his own mind. Hermione didn't look entirely convinced, but nodded. I suppose that makes sense. Still, be careful tomorrow. I will be, Harry promised. Dumbledore's coming with me. Between his power and my knowledge of the defenses, we should be fine. An awkward silence fell. So, Ron finally said, want to play some chess? See if all that new knowledge helps you beat me for once. Harry grinned, grateful for the normalcy of the suggestion. Sure. Though I doubt even Voldemort's memories include how to beat you at chess. As they set up the board, Harry felt some of the tension ease from his shoulders. This was what he needed, normal interaction with his friends, activities that had nothing to do with Dark Lords or prophecies or soul magic. To his surprise, the game was more challenging than usual, not because Harry suddenly possessed chess brilliance, but because he found himself analyzing the board more systematically, recognizing patterns and anticipating moves several turns in advance. He still lost, but it was a close match. Blimey, Ron said as he finally checkmated Harry's king. That was different. You actually made me work for it this time. Harry shrugged. Just thinking more strategically, I guess. It's not just chess, Hermione observed, looking up from her book. You're carrying yourself differently. More, deliberately. Your speech patterns have changed too. More precise. Is that bad? Harry asked, suddenly self-conscious. Not bad, Hermione said carefully. Just different. You seem older somehow. I feel older, Harry admitted. Like I've lived through decades of experiences that aren't mine. It's disorienting. But you're still you, Ginny said firmly. It wasn't a question but a statement of faith. Harry smiled at her gratefully. Yeah. I'm still me. The rest of the day passed in a semblance of normalcy. Harry helped with chores, played Exploding Snap with the twins, and spent time planning Horcrux strategy with Ron and Hermione. He carefully avoided using magic, not quite ready to reveal the full extent of his new abilities to everyone in the house. That night, as he prepared for bed, Harry found himself drawn to the mirror in his bathroom. His reflection looked the same as always, untidy black hair, green eyes, lightning scar. But now he knew the scar for what it truly was, or had been. The point where a fragment of Voldemort's shattered soul had attached to his own. Who am I now? He whispered to his reflection. The question haunted him as he drifted off to sleep. In his dreams, he walked through a Hogwarts that blended seamlessly with a dreary orphanage. Sometimes he was Harry, sometimes Tom, the transitions so fluid he barely noticed the change. He woke just before dawn, a single thought clear in his mind: today the hunt would begin. Today they would start systematically dismantling Voldemort's immortality. And somewhere in Britain, Voldemort awakened as well, a growing sense of unease plaguing him. Something had changed. Something had been lost. He just didn't know what yet. The game had changed, and only Harry knew all the new rules. Chapter 2, Trials of Power. The air crackled with a kind of nervous energy the next morning. Harry woke feeling like a coiled spring, ready to launch. His head was still clear, his scar still blessedly painless, but the sheer volume of information rattling around in his brain was immense. It was like trying to organize a library where every book had been read, remembered, and cross-referenced instantaneously. But he wasn't overwhelmed. He felt capable. Dangerous, even. Dumbledore was waiting for him downstairs, looking unusually grim. Kingsley Shacklebolt was there too, nursing a cup of tea. No Moody, no Lupin. This was a smaller, more focused group. "Morning, Harry," Dumbledore said, his eyes scanning Harry's face. "Ready for our little excursion?" Harry nodded, his stomach doing a little flip-flop that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with anticipation. "As I'll ever be." "The ring, right?" "Indeed." "The Gaunt family home." "You seem remarkably calm about this, considering the nature of our task." "I know what we're facing," Harry said, shrugging. "And I know how to deal with it. Panicking won't help." That cold logic sounded a bit like Voldemort, and Harry mentally kicked himself. Still, it was true. Kingsley cleared his throat. "Harry, Dumbledore mentioned your unique situation. We've decided to keep this operation as need-to-know as possible. The fewer people who understand the full extent of your capabilities, the better. For now, the general narrative is that Dumbledore has acquired new intelligence on Voldemort's defenses, and you're accompanying him as a research assistant." Harry snorted. "Research assistant? More like living encyclopedia of dark magic." "Exactly," Dumbledore said, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "It's a delicate balance, Harry. The world isn't ready for a hero who wields knowledge of the darkest arts, no matter how pure his intentions." "So, the plan," Harry pressed, eager to get moving. "The ring is under the floorboards of the Gaunt shack. What are the specific curses protecting it?" Dumbledore raised an eyebrow. "You can recount them precisely?" "Of course," Harry said, and the words flowed out of him with startling ease. "There's a standard disillusionment charm, then a repelling ward that acts on magical energy, designed to deflect any direct magical assault without triggering a larger defensive web. Next, a complex anti-apparition ward and an anti-disapparition ward, specifically keyed to prevent entry or exit by anyone not of Gaunt blood, which means you and I are essentially locked out. Inside the shack itself, there are a series of lesser dark charms, a persistent jinx that causes acute paranoia, a spell-dampening aura, and a localized curse that causes intense physical pain when someone nears the ring's location. The worst is the decaying curse on the ring box itself, activated by touch. It spreads like wildfire, flesh and bone dissolving within minutes unless immediately countered with a specific cleansing ritual." Kingsley and Dumbledore exchanged a look of pure astonishment. "That's remarkably accurate," Dumbledore said slowly. "Even I was not aware of the decaying curse on the box. I had only divined the presence of a powerful curse on the ring itself." "Voldemort was quite proud of his security measures," Harry said dryly, a flicker of a memory showing him Voldemort's younger self, arrogant and meticulous, setting up the wards. "He considered the ring a significant trophy, a symbol of his lineage." "Right then," Kingsley said, shaking his head. "So, Harry, your knowledge of how to dismantle these specific defenses?" Harry grinned, a genuine, slightly wicked grin that made Kingsley take a step back. "The repelling ward can be bypassed by overloading it with specific counter-runes, causing a temporary feedback loop that neutralizes it for a few seconds. The anti-apparition and disapparition wards are more complex, requiring a precise combination of blood magic, specifically, a drop of Gaunt blood, though a well-placed blood-based countercharm could fool it, and a specific, nearly archaic incantation to temporarily suppress the lineage requirement. The paranoia jinx and spell-dampening aura are easily dispelled with a simple renervate and finite incantatum, though they'll reform if we linger. As for the decaying curse, the counter-ritual requires pulverized mandrake root, a moonstone, and a specific incantation delivered within 10 seconds of contact." "I know the incantation." Dumbledore stared at Harry, his eyes wide. "Harry, this is, Extraordinary. Extraordinarily dark, Professor, Harry corrected. Blood magic and decaying curses aren't exactly found in first-year textbooks. No, Dumbledore agreed, they are not. And the means of neutralizing them, as well, seem to derive from a deep understanding of such magic. You mentioned a well-placed blood-based counter-charm to bypass the gaunt blood requirement for the apparition wards. What would that entail? Harry closed his eyes, sifting through the layers of information. It's a rare and risky piece of ritual magic. It involves drawing a small amount of your own blood, enchanting it with a charm that mimics the magical signature of the required lineage, and then applying it to the ward. The effect is temporary and highly unstable, but it tricks the ward into believing you possess the correct bloodline. It's essentially a magical forgery, very frowned upon by the Ministry. Frowned upon indeed, Kingsley muttered, rubbing his chin. But effective, you believe? Voldemort used it himself on occasion to test his own wards without needing a living gaunt relative, Harry supplied, the memory flickering through his mind. It works. Then that is our approach, Dumbledore said decisively. Harry, your contribution here is invaluable. Now, to prepare the materials. Harry spent the next hour helping Dumbledore gather what they needed, a small vial of Dumbledore's blood, a mandrake root. Thankfully, there was a supply in Grimmauld Place's potion stores, a polished moonstone, and several other obscure components that Harry instantly recognized from Voldemort's mental inventory of ritual ingredients. This is fascinating, Dumbledore remarked, examining a tiny silver needle Harry had produced from a forgotten cabinet. This was used for blood-binding rituals, Harry supplied. Very precise. Voldemort preferred it to a knife for delicate work. Dumbledore simply hummed in response, his expression unreadable. With their supplies packed into a small pouch, Dumbledore led Harry to the sitting room. Kingsley, we shall depart now. Keep a tight lid on this, please. Inform only Remus and Severus of our immediate objective. We should be back within the day. Kingsley nodded grimly. Be careful, Albus. Harry. Dumbledore took a pinch of Flo powder. Gaunt shack, little Hangleton, he announced, and stepped into the green flames. Harry followed without hesitation, picturing the decaying shack with vivid clarity in his mind. The travel was disorienting. Harry stumbled out of the fireplace into a crumbling, damp living room. The air was thick with the smell of decay and something else, a faint, unpleasant magical odor. Dust motes danced in the sparse light filtering through grimy windows. Just as I remember it, Harry muttered, then mentally added, just as Voldemort remembered it. The distinction was becoming easier to make, but still required effort. The disillusionment charm is already here, Dumbledore noted, flicking his wand to reveal the shimmering outlines of several ancient wards. And the repelling ward is active. Stand back, Professor, Harry said, drawing his wand. He closed his eyes, picturing the intricate runic sequence for the counterrunes. He felt a surge of energy, a wellspring of power that resonated deeply within him. This wasn't his power, not entirely, but he could access it, channel it. He began tracing patterns in the air, his wand movements fluid and precise, utterly unlike his usual slightly clumsy style. Ancient runes, imbued with a strange, dark luminescence, briefly glowed where his wand tip passed. He chanted softly, a series of guttural, archaic words that felt as natural on his tongue as English. Repello in fringo, sfera inversa, animus contra. The wards around the shack shimmered violently, then pulsed outwards in a wave of displaced magic. For a few seconds, the entire area felt magically muted, the repelling ward neutralized. That was quite impressive, Harry, Dumbledore said, a genuine note of admiration in his voice. A spell I have never encountered. Voldemort invented it, or at least heavily modified it from something much older, Harry said. He was a gifted ward breaker in his youth. Now, for the anti-apparition wards. Harry pricked Dumbledore's finger with the silver needle, gathering a single drop of blood onto a clean leaf. He then began chanting another ancient incantation, weaving the blood into a shimmering, almost invisible charm. Once complete, he pressed the enchanted leaf onto the invisible barrier surrounding the shack. The ward pulsed, then shivered. For a brief moment, Harry saw a faint, spectral image of a snake, the symbol of the Gaunt family, flicker in the air before dissolving. "It worked," Harry said, feeling a thrill of accomplishment. "The ward thinks you're a Gaunt. Now, Professor, if you could cast a strong finite incantatum on the main structure to clear the paranoia jinx and spell-dampening aura. I'll maintain the apparition ward bypass as we enter." Dumbledore nodded, flicking his wand with a powerful, sweeping motion. Finite incantatum maxima. A wave of shimmering white light washed over the shack, and Harry felt the oppressive, subtle dread in the air lift immediately. He was still maintaining the apparition ward bypass, a faint thrumming in his wand hand. "All right," Harry said. "Inside. The ring is under the floorboards in the second bedroom upstairs, right below the loose floorboard next to the crooked bed." They moved through the dilapidated shack. The air was thick with dust and the smell of rot. Harry could feel the lingering traces of dark magic everywhere, particularly strong in the corners of rooms. He also felt the faint, annoying prickle of the localized pain curse growing stronger as they climbed the creaking stairs. Getting closer, Harry murmured, wincing slightly as a dull ache started in his temples. They reached the second bedroom. It was a squalid space, barely furnished. A lopsided bed, a rickety chair, and a wardrobe stood amidst cobwebs and debris. Here, Harry pointed to a particularly warped floorboard. "The pain curse is strongest right about here." Dumbledore approached cautiously, his wand tip glowing. "Any additional traps you're aware of, Harry?" "Just the decaying curse on the box itself," Harry replied, still holding his hand to his temple. "It activates on contact. I have the counter ritual ready. Just let me retrieve it, and I'll do the counter." "It has to be done immediately." Dumbledore nodded. "Very well. Proceed with extreme caution." Harry knelt, running his hand along the floorboard. He found the loose spot, pried it up with a gentle levioso, and peered into the darkness beneath. There, nestled amongst cobwebs and dirt, was a small, grimy wooden box. A faint, malevolent aura emanated from it, even to Harry's newly sensitive magical senses. "Got it," Harry said, reaching in. As his fingers brushed the box, a horrifying cold spread up his arm, accompanied by a sensation of rapid decay. He saw it in Voldemort's memories, the quick, agonizing dissolution. Without a moment's hesitation, Harry snatched the box out. His hand was already starting to blacken and shrivel. "Mandrake Curo, Luna Purifico, Animus Redimo." Harry chanted, sprinkling pulverized mandrake root and moonstone onto his rapidly decaying hand. The words were ancient, forgotten, but they came to him instinctively. A wave of warmth spread from his hand, pushing back the cold, black decay. The shriveled skin softened, the blackness faded, and his hand returned to normal. It felt a little tingly, but otherwise fine. Dumbledore watched, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. "That was, remarkably fast, Harry. A close call." Harry wiped his forehead, feeling a cold sweat. "Yeah. Let's not do that again." He presented the wooden box to Dumbledore. "Here it is. I think the ring is inside." Dumbledore carefully opened the box with a non-contact charm. Inside, resting on a velvet cushion, was a heavy gold ring set with a black, cracked stone. The symbol of the Deathly Hallows was clearly visible on its surface. "The Resurrection Stone," Dumbledore whispered, his eyes fixed on the ring with a mixture of reverence and longing. "And a Horcrux," Harry reminded him, pulling Dumbledore back to reality. "How do we destroy it, Professor? What's strong enough?" Dumbledore closed the box, shaking his head slightly. "Not here. The magic is too unstable. We must return to Grimmauld Place. There, I have some instruments that might suffice." But first, let's dismantle these wards completely so we don't accidentally reactivate them on our way out. Harry nodded, and together they worked their way back out of the shack, Harry methodically dismantling each layer of defense using his new knowledge. He felt a sense of pride in his newfound abilities, but also a chilling awareness of the power he now wielded. They flew back to Grimmauld Place, carrying the small wooden box. Dumbledore took it directly to his office, a secure room on the first floor that was even more heavily warded than the rest of the house. "Come, Harry," Dumbledore said, gesturing him in. "Now, to destroy it." Inside Dumbledore's office, a number of strange artifacts lay on a large, ornate table. One, a heavy silver sword, seemed to glow faintly. "The Sword of Gryffindor," Dumbledore explained, sensing Harry's gaze. "Imbued with basilisk venom during your second year, Harry. It is one of the few magical substances capable of destroying a Horcrux." Harry felt a surge of familiar pride, a memory of his younger self pulling the sword from the sorting hat. This, at least, was a good memory, untainted by Voldemort. "There's also Fiendfire," Harry suggested, recalling a terrifying mental image of the uncontrolled, sentient flames. "Voldemort used it to destroy a hidden village once." Dumbledore frowned. "Fiendfire is far too dangerous, Harry. It is a creature of dark magic itself, nearly impossible to control. It consumes all in its path, friend and foe alike." "But it would work," Harry insisted, the cold logic of Voldemort's mind asserting itself. "It would burn a Horcrux without a trace. And I know how to control it." He didn't just know how to control it, he felt the arcane commands and rituals for bending the cursed flames to his will, knowledge seeping from Voldemort's memories. Dumbledore looked at him sharply. "You know how to control Fiendfire?" "Yes," Harry said. "It's not easy, but it's possible. There are specific incantations and mental exercises required. It's about subjugating its will, making it an extension of your own." "Harry, we will not be using Fiendfire," Dumbledore stated, his voice firm. "The risks are too great. The Sword of Gryffindor will suffice." Harry felt a flicker of annoyance, a strange stubbornness that wasn't entirely his own. He knew the efficacy of Fiendfire, its destructive purity. Why waste time with less efficient methods? But he also knew Dumbledore's moral compass. He decided not to push it, for now. Dumbledore carefully placed the wooden box containing the ring onto a pedestal. He then lifted the Sword of Gryffindor. "Are you ready, Harry?" he asked, his eyes grave. Harry nodded. "Do it." With a powerful swing, Dumbledore brought the Sword of Gryffindor down onto the ring. A shriek, thin and terrible, filled the room. Black smoke billowed from the ring, momentarily obscuring it. The air grew cold, heavy with despair. Then, with a sound like shattering glass, the ring split, the black stone cracking down the middle. The malevolent aura vanished, replaced by an unsettling emptiness. The scream died away. The black smoke dissipated. The room felt lighter, cleaner. "One down," Harry said, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. 5 to go. Dumbledore picked up the broken ring, examining the two halves. "The resurrection stone is destroyed. And the Horcrux with it. A significant victory, Harry. Thanks to your insights." "My insights and Voldemort's memories," Harry corrected, feeling the internal struggle again. "It's all mixed up, Professor. Sometimes I wonder if I'm even thinking for myself anymore, or if it's just echoes of his thoughts guiding me." Dumbledore placed a comforting hand on Harry's shoulder. "That is the peril, Harry. You must always remember who you are. Your choices, your values, your love for your friends, these are the anchors that hold you firm against his influence. It will not be easy. You have acquired immense power, and power tempts. But you have always been stronger than Tom in the ways that truly matter." "I hope so," Harry murmured. They returned to the main part of Grimmauld Place, where Ron and Hermione were waiting anxiously. When Harry explained that the ring was destroyed, Ron let out a cheer, while Hermione looked a mixture of relieved and utterly exhausted by the implications. "This is huge, Harry," Ron exclaimed. "One down. You actually did it." "Yes," Hermione said, "but this means there are 4 more." "And what about the risks you mentioned? The decaying curse?" Harry quickly recounted the incident with his hand, playing down the speed of the decay but explaining the immediate counter. Hermione listened with wide eyes. "That's horrifying," she whispered. "Harry, you need to be so careful. These aren't just objects, they're pieces of his soul. They're inherently dangerous." "I know," Harry said. "And I have the knowledge to deal with them. That's the whole point." "Still," Hermione fretted, "we should research other ways to destroy them, just in case. Something less dark than fiendfire, but equally effective as basilisk venom." Harry felt a surge of impatience. "Hermione, the information is in my head. I know what works. There are precious few things that can truly destroy a Horcrux. Basilisk venom, fiendfire, or certain ancient, powerful dark curses that we definitely shouldn't touch. But to rely solely on the knowledge of the person who created them?" Hermione argued. "It feels inherently risky." "It's the most efficient route," Harry countered, the pragmatic, strategic part of his brain kicking in. "We don't have time to research other ways when Voldemort is gaining power every day." Their argument was cut short by Dumbledore, who entered the room. "Harry, we have another matter to attend to. There was an incident in Diagon Alley." Harry's focus sharpened instantly. "Death Eaters?" Dumbledore nodded grimly. "A coordinated attack. They targeted several shops owned by Muggleborns and Half-Bloods. Kingsley and Moody are already on the scene, but they've requested additional support. It seems Voldemort is sending a message." "I'll go," Harry said immediately. "I can help." "Harry, are you sure?" Hermione asked, concerned. "You've just been through a lot." "I'm fine," Harry insisted. He felt a fierce protectiveness rise within him, a need to act. This was Harry's emotion, his deep-seated desire to protect the innocent, channeled through Voldemort's efficiency. "In fact, I'm better than fine. I know their tactics now. I know how they operate. I can anticipate their moves." Dumbledore studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Very well. But stick with Kingsley and Moody. Do not engage alone." "Understood," Harry said, but even as he spoke, a part of him was already formulating independent strategies, assessing the fastest routes, the most effective spell combinations for crowd control and neutralizing threats. They flew to the leaky cauldron. Stepping out into the packed pub, Harry immediately noticed the panic in the air, the frantic whispers, the scent of fear. The landlord, Tom, was trying to reassure frightened patrons, but his voice was shaking. As they pushed through to the back entrance, a loud explosion rocked the alley. Shouts and screams erupted. "This way!" Dumbledore commanded, drawing his wand. They burst into Diagon Alley. It was chaos. Shopfronts lay in ruins, their contents scattered. People were fleeing in terror, stumbling over debris. Sparks of red and green light flashed in the distance, accompanied by loud bangs and cries of pain. Harry's eyes immediately scanned the scene, taking in every detail. He saw 4 Death Eaters in the distance, tearing apart a small bookshop. 2 more were setting fire to a potion ingredients store. Another group seemed to be targeting bystanders. "Disperse the crowd!" Dumbledore bellowed, casting a powerful sonorous charm. "Aurors, focus on the immediate threats. Harry, with me." But Harry was already moving. His mind had identified the most immediate threats. The Death Eaters setting fires were creating more panic and destruction. The ones targeting civilians were actively murdering people. "I'll handle the fires and crowd control." Harry yelled back to Dumbledore, not waiting for a response. "Accio water barrels." From a nearby empty shop, 2 large water barrels flew through the air, dousing the growing flames at the potion store with a loud hiss. Harry didn't stop there. He saw a civilian about to be hit by a stray blasting curse. He flicked his wand. Protego Maxima. A shimmering, invisible shield flared around the person just in time, deflecting the curse harmlessly. Then, he focused on the Death Eaters who were actively attacking. He saw Kingsley and Moody engaging 2 of them near quality Quidditch supplies, but another 2 were still advancing on terrified shoppers. Harry took a deep breath, and something shifted within him. He felt a surge of cold, precise power. He didn't just know spells now, he felt them, understood their very essence. He aimed his wand at the first advancing Death Eater. Confringo. A silent, powerful blasting curse erupted from his wand, hitting the Death Eater squarely in the chest. The force sent him flying backwards into a pile of rubble. The second Death Eater spun around, startled. Harry didn't give him a chance. He remembered Voldemort's favorite tactic for disorienting multiple opponents, a sudden, powerful burst of sound and light. Bombarda Sonoris. Harry roared, a rarely used, highly unstable variant of Bombarda. A concussive wave of sound and light exploded from his wand, directly in front of the second Death Eater. The mask flew off his face as he screamed, clutching his head, momentarily stunned and disoriented. Harry didn't use the opportunity to kill. He flicked his wand again, a silent, binding spell flowing from his fingertips. The Death Eater's limbs snapped together, and he crumpled to the ground, bound tightly. Bloody hell, Potter. Moody's voice rasped from across the alley. What was that? Bombarda Sonoris? That's restricted. And that blasting curse, Harry ignored him, his eyes scanning for other threats. He saw a group of frightened Muggleborns cowering behind an overturned stall, about to be cornered by 2 more Death Eaters who had just emerged from a side alley. He aimed, not for the Death Eaters directly, but for the street in front of them. Sectum Sempra. A thin, invisible blade of magic slashed through the cobblestones, kicking up a shower of sparks and forcing the Death Eaters to leap back to avoid the unexpected, brutal attack. It wasn't designed to kill, just to disrupt, to create a momentary barrier. The Death Eaters, surprised by this unconventional and aggressive defense, hesitated. Harry seized the moment. Stupefy. Stupefy. 2 jets of red light, silent and powerful, struck them both. They went down. Harry found Dumbledore, who had been busy shielding civilians and deflecting curses from another group of attackers. His face was etched with a mixture of concern and a peculiar pride. Harry, your spell selection is, certainly effective, Dumbledore said, deflecting a powerful curse with an elegant flick of his wand. But I must caution you against the use of such dark curses as Sectum Sempra. It's a cutting curse, Professor, Harry retorted, dodging a jet of green light. It didn't kill anyone, just got their attention. We're in a war. We need to be effective. Effective, yes. But we must not descend to their level. Harry didn't have time to argue. Another Death Eater appeared, aiming a killing curse at a terrified family. Harry didn't think. He reacted. His wand was up, a shimmering shield rising before the family. Expelliarmus, he roared, his voice filled with raw power. The disarming charm hit the Death Eater with such force that not only did his wand fly from his hand, but he was thrown backwards through the window of a dress shop. The fight continued for another 10 minutes. Harry moved like a blur, casting powerful, precise spells, often non-verbally, often without familiar incantations. He used sophisticated shielding charms, disarming spells, and even complex illusionary spells to disorient and separate the Death Eaters. He never used a killing curse, never resorted to torture, but his magic was brutal, efficient, and utterly unlike the Harry Potter everyone knew. Eventually, the remaining Death Eaters, seeing their numbers dwindle and facing overwhelming opposition from the Order, apparat away. The alley was a wreck. Several people were injured, but no one had been killed, thanks in no small part to Harry's decisive actions. Aurors and Order members were quickly moving to secure the area, heal the wounded, and begin interrogations of the captured Death Eaters. Moody clapped Harry roughly on the shoulder. "Well, Potter. Didn't think you had that in you. Where'd you learn to cast like that?" "That Bombarda Sonoris was a right mess." "It was effective," Harry repeated, feeling a strange exhaustion setting in now that the adrenaline was fading. "Indeed," Dumbledore said, appearing beside them. He looked at Harry, his gaze thoughtful. "Your methods are evolving, Harry. Rapidly." "Needs must," Harry said. "We can't fight a Dark Lord with one hand tied behind our backs. Not when he doesn't play fair." "A dangerous philosophy," Dumbledore warned. "But one that, in this instance, saved lives." The public display of Harry's new powers caused quite a stir. The Daily Prophet, predictably, ran sensational headlines: "Boy Who Lived Unleashes Unseen Power in Diagon Alley Attack," and "Potter's Dark Magic Saves Lives." The Ministry launched an immediate inquiry into Harry's use of a restricted spell. Back at Grimmauld Place, the mood was tense. Hermione was furious about Sectum Sempra and Bombarda Sonoris, while Ron was torn between pride and concern. The Order members were mostly impressed, but a few, like Molly, were clearly unnerved by the ruthlessness Harry displayed. "You could have killed them, Harry," Hermione argued, pacing the sitting room. "You used a spell that caused agonizing pain and severe injury." "I used it to make them back off, Hermione," Harry retorted, feeling a flare of his newly acquired impatience. "It slashed the ground, not them. It was a deterrent. They were about to corner a family of Muggleborns. What would you have preferred? A charm that politely asked them to stop? But to use a spell developed by a dark wizard, I have a dark wizard's knowledge in my head, Hermione." Harry snapped. "I know thousands of spells. Some are dark, some aren't. I choose what to use. I chose to save those people. Don't you dare try to tell me I did the wrong thing." Hermione fell silent, clearly shocked by his outburst. Ron put a hand on her arm. Dumbledore, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke. "The debate is valid, but the outcome is clear. Harry's actions saved lives today. We must learn to adapt to this new reality. Harry's abilities are powerful, but they must be guided by his own inherent goodness." Later that evening, after the dust had settled, Dumbledore took Harry aside. "Harry, the Ministry inquiry into your use of Bombarda Sonoris will be difficult. Kingsley has managed to prevent your direct testimony for now, arguing you were acting under duress and saving lives, but they will demand an explanation for your sudden mastery of such spells." "I'll tell them the truth," Harry said. "Or as much of it as I can get away with. That the connection with Voldemort allowed me to understand his magic." "A difficult truth to swallow for many," Dumbledore murmured. "Especially Fudge and his cronies. Perhaps it is time for you to return to Hogwarts. Under my protection, your immediate movements will be less scrutinized. And it would allow us to pursue the next Horcrux." Harry's eyes widened. "The diadem?" "Indeed," Dumbledore confirmed. "You mentioned it was hidden in the Room of Requirement. A rather clever choice, as it is notoriously difficult to locate for those who do not understand its nature." "I know how to find it," Harry said, feeling a familiar surge of cold certainty. Voldemort, as Tom Riddle, discovered its secrets. He knew that the Room of Requirement would always provide what a user truly needed. He needed a place to hide something significant from everyone, and the room provided a cluttered space filled with objects of concealment. The diadem is within a pile of ancient artifacts, concealed by a powerful notice-me-not charm, inside a hidden niche. Dumbledore nodded. "Then Hogwarts is our next step. It also serves another purpose. I have a suspicion that Voldemort may be attempting to infiltrate the school, or at least prepare for an eventual assault. Your presence and your unique abilities will be invaluable." The next day, Harry returned to Hogwarts. The welcome was muted. Most students looked at him with awe, some with fear, others with a strange kind of reverence. He heard whispers of the Diagon Alley incident, that dark magic he'd supposedly used. Hermione and Ron stayed close, a familiar, comforting presence amidst the sea of curious glances. Even some of the teachers seemed wary. Snape, of course, was his usual sneering self, but even Professor McGonagall seemed to regard him with a mixture of pride and profound unease. Harry felt the weight of expectations, the scrutiny, but it didn't bother him as much as it used to. He had a mission. He spent the first few days back in Hogwarts acclimatizing, attending classes, and subtly observing his surroundings. His new knowledge made it easy to spot hidden passages, notice subtle magical anomalies, and even discern the magical signatures of students and staff. He noticed a persistent, faint dark magical signature emanating from the Slytherin common room, stronger than usual, and occasionally moving through the castle late at night. Draco Malfoy. The thought came unbidden, a flash of recognition from Voldemort's memories. Malfoy had been tasked with a mission by Voldemort himself, though the specific details were vague, clouded by Voldemort's detachment from the minutiae of his followers' lives. Something about a cabinet, a link. Harry decided it was time for an unconventional approach. One evening, after dinner, Harry found Malfoy alone in a deserted corridor, looking pale and gaunt. He was leaning against a wall, his hand pressed to his left arm, where the dark mark would be. He flinched when he saw Harry. "Potter," Malfoy sneered, though his voice lacked its usual venom. "What do you want? Come to gloat about your latest antics in Diagon Alley?" "Not exactly," Harry said, his voice calm. He looked at Malfoy's pale face, the dark circles under his eyes, the tremor in his hand. He saw the fear, the burden. Voldemort's memories provided context, Malfoy's mission, the almost impossible task, the threat hanging over his family. "You're struggling, Malfoy," Harry observed. "Voldemort's mission isn't going well, is it? The Vanishing Cabinet isn't cooperating." Malfoy's eyes widened in shock. His mask of indifference shattered. "How do you," he began, then stopped, jaw clenching. "You know nothing, Potter." "I know everything," Harry corrected, stepping closer. "I know about the Vanishing Cabinets. The one here, the one in Borgin and Berks. I know about the connecting ritual. I know about your assignment, to let his Death Eaters into the school." Malfoy stared at him, his face a mixture of terror and a grudging respect. You can't know that. Only the Dark Lord and a select few. "I know because I have his memories, Malfoy," Harry interrupted, speaking in a low, even tone. "The Horcrux in my scar. It changed. Now I have access to everything Voldemort knows, everything he's experienced. Including his plans, his followers, and the impossible task he's given you." Malfoy scoffed, a shaky, unconvincing sound. "You're lying, Potter. Trying to trick me." "Am I?" Harry countered. "Did your father tell you about the secret passage from the Room of Requirement that connects to the Chamber of Secrets entrance? Did he tell you how to disarm the alarm charms on the restricted section in the library? Or where the spare set of brooms are kept for detention cleanup duty in the castle? I know these things because I have access to a deep, dark well of knowledge. Knowledge that includes your master's mind." Malfoy was visibly shaken. He backed away slightly, staring at Harry as if he were a ghost. "This is a trick. A legitimacy attempt. Try to block me then," Harry challenged, and for a moment, he pushed just a sliver of Voldemort's raw, unfiltered power into Malfoy's mind. Not enough to hurt him, but enough to convey the sheer depth and darkness of the knowledge now residing in Harry. Malfoy gasped, staggering back against the wall, clutching his head. His face was ashen. "Get out of my head, Potter," he whimpered, a raw fear in his voice that Harry had never heard before. Harry immediately withdrew the connection. "See? I'm not lying. And I'm not here to hurt you, Malfoy. I'm here because you're in over your head. Voldemort will kill you, and your family, if you fail." And you will fail. Malfoy looked up, his eyes bloodshot. What do you want? Information, Harry said. You tell me everything about the cabinet, his plans, his inner circle, any other Death Eater activities. In return, I'll help you fix the cabinet. Not to let them in, but to destroy it. And I'll tell Dumbledore that you are acting as an informant, under duress, and that your family will be protected. Malfoy scoffed, a bitter sound. You think Dumbledore will trust me? A Death Eater? My father's a marked man. Dumbledore trusts Severus Snape, Harry pointed out, who is also a marked man. He sees the bigger picture. I can vouch for you. And if I tell Dumbledore you're helping us dismantle Voldemort's plans, he'll do everything in his power to protect you. Malfoy hesitated, clearly torn. The fear of Voldemort was warring with his ingrained hatred of Harry and his pride. You're out of time, Malfoy, Harry pressed, seeing the doubt in his eyes. He'll kill you. You know he will. But if you help me, you can save yourself. Save your family. And perhaps even redeem yourself. Malfoy swallowed hard. He looked at his hand, then at Harry, then at the empty corridor. How can I trust you, Potter? You're the one who scarred my father's face. Because I'm not him, Harry said simply. I don't kill in cold blood. I fight for what's right. And right now, what's right is stopping Voldemort, and that includes saving innocent people caught in his web. Even you. A long, tense silence stretched between them. Then, slowly, Malfoy nodded. All right, Potter. I'll tell you everything. But you have to promise to protect my mother. I promise, Harry said, extending his hand. Malfoy hesitated for a moment, then, with visible reluctance, shook it. The alliance was formed. Over the next few days, Harry and Malfoy met in secret. Malfoy provided Harry with invaluable intelligence, the precise magical defects in the Vanishing Cabinet, the schedule of Death Eater meetings, names of Death Eaters embedded in the Ministry, and most critically, Voldemort's growing paranoia about Dumbledore's Horcrux hunting. He's been uneasy, Malfoy explained one night in a deserted classroom. He feels a disturbance in his magic. Like pieces of him are vanishing. He thinks Dumbledore is trying to sever his connection to his power somehow, not knowing it's Horcruxes. Good, Harry muttered. Let him think that. It'll keep him off our trail for a bit longer. With Malfoy's information, Harry developed a new, more efficient plan for hunting the Horcruxes. He now knew Voldemort was aware, subtly, of the losses. This meant speed was crucial. The diadem next, Harry told Dumbledore during one of their private meetings. Malfoy's intelligence confirms Voldemort's growing paranoia. We need to move quickly before he secures the remaining Horcruxes more heavily. Dumbledore listened intently, occasionally asking probing questions about Malfoy's loyalty. Harry vouched for him, explaining the depth of Malfoy's fear and desperation. A reluctant ally born of terror, Dumbledore mused. A dangerous game, Harry, but one that could prove beneficial. The next week, Harry and Dumbledore began their hunt for the Ravenclaw diadem. The room of requirement, Dumbledore said, standing before the blank wall on the 7th floor. You are certain of its location? Positive, Harry said. Voldemort, as Tom Riddle, knew the room would provide him a safe, hidden place. He asked for a place to hide something that no one would find. The room filled itself with centuries of forgotten things. The diadem is in there, inside a specific nook, covered by layers of junk and powerful notice-me-not charms. He closed his eyes, visualizing the room from Voldemort's memory. The towering piles of furniture, the broken potions equipment, the banished Quidditch trophies. And there, near the entrance, was a specific alcove, crammed with discarded ancient magical items. All right, Harry said, opening his eyes. We need to walk past this wall 3 times, thinking about what we need. A place where everything is hidden. They did so. On the third pass, a magnificent doorway appeared on the otherwise blank wall. Stepping inside, Harry was confronted by a cavernous space, filled to the ceiling with towering mountains of discarded furniture, broken objects, and forgotten artifacts. It was a chaotic wonderland of magical junk. "As I recall," Dumbledore said, looking around in awe. "Remarkable. To think such a place exists." "This way," Harry said, setting off. He moved with purpose, navigating the labyrinthine piles of junk with surprising speed and accuracy, almost as if he'd been there before. Every now and then, a strong residual magical signature from a particularly potent forgotten artifact would draw his eye, but he dismissed them. He was on a mission. "How do you know where to go?" Dumbledore asked, having to jog to keep up. "It's like a mental map," Harry explained, layered over my own memories of the castle. "I can just feel the path Tom took." They finally reached a specific alcove, piled high with broken statues, moth-eaten tapestries, and dusty old books. "Here," Harry said, pointing to a small, nearly invisible niche behind a stack of cursed goblin-made armor. "It's in there. There are several notice-me-not charms. Powerful ones. Voldemort didn't want anyone stumbling upon this." Dumbledore drew his wand. "Revelio Maxima," he intoned. The area shimmered, and faintly, the outline of a small, tiara-like object became visible within the niche. It was old, tarnished, but clearly the diadem of Rowena Ravenclaw. "Magnificent," Dumbledore murmured. "And corrupt." "The charms are still active," Harry warned. "If we just reach for it, it'll trigger a series of binding and silencing curses." "Your knowledge, Harry?" Dumbledore prompted. Harry closed his eyes again, sifting through the memories. "Yes. The charms are keyed to the diadem's physical removal. A specific disarming countercharm, followed by a light-based dispersal spell to blind the subsequent silencing wards, then a physical barrier to absorb the binding curse's recoil. It's complicated." "I have faith in you," Dumbledore said. Harry took a deep breath. This was it. He pointed his wand at the diadem, his eyes focused. "Disarmo Nexus." A pulse of raw, focused magic shot from his wand, washing over the diadem. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a faint ping sound, like a taut wire snapping, echoed in the room. "Good," Harry breathed. "Now for the light dispersal." The silencing charms activate in sequence. He aimed his wand again. "Lumen Dispersio." A burst of intensely bright, pure white light exploded from his wand, momentarily blinding Dumbledore. When Harry blinked, the lingering magical energy around the diadem was gone. "Finally, the binding curses," Harry said, producing a small, enchanted silver plate from his pouch. "The binding curses are designed to ensnare the person removing the diadem. We need to absorb them." He carefully extended the plate, pushing it into the niche. As the plate touched the diadem, there was a sudden whoosh, and invisible tendrils of magic seemed to leap from the diadem, striking the silver plate. The plate vibrated violently, absorbing the magical assault, then glowed faintly before settling. "Got it," Harry said, reaching past the plate and carefully extracting the diadem. It was a beautiful piece, silver set with blue stones, but a profound darkness emanated from it. "Another one," Harry said, holding it aloft. "Excellent work, Harry," Dumbledore said, taking the diadem from him with care. "This, too, must be destroyed." They returned to Dumbledore's office. This time, Harry himself wielded the sword of Gryffindor. He felt a fierce satisfaction as he brought the blade down, severing the dark magic from existence. Another unearthly shriek, a cloud of black smoke, and a feeling of profound emptiness filled the room. The diadem shattered. "That's two," Harry said, wiping his brow. "Only 3 left." Suddenly, there was a frantic knock on Dumbledore's office door. "Professor Dumbledore." "It's an emergency," came Professor McGonagall's voice, laced with urgency. Dumbledore quickly concealed the remnants of the diadem. Come in, Minerva. McGonagall burst in, looking frazzled. Headmaster, I've just received word from some students. Apparently, Draco Malfoy was seen acting suspiciously near the room of requirement entrance. And there's a strong, dark magical signature coming from the 7th floor. Harry and Dumbledore exchanged a quick glance. Malfoy. He's betrayed me, Harry muttered, a cold anger coiling in his gut. Perhaps not, Harry, Dumbledore said, a thoughtful expression on his face. This might be part of his plan to appear loyal to Voldemort. It's possible he's trying to cover his tracks, or even expose another element of Voldemort's infiltration. Harry remembered Malfoy's intel. The plan was for the Death Eaters to infiltrate, but Malfoy's job was also to activate the cabinets and then report back to Voldemort. Perhaps he was doing both. I need to go, Harry said, already moving towards the door. If Death Eaters are getting in, I need to stop them. Harry, wait. Dumbledore called. We don't know the full situation. It could be a trap. But Harry was already out the door, his mind racing. He knew the castle's layout. He knew the Death Eaters' tactics. And he had a chilling suspicion of what Malfoy might be up to. He ran through the corridors, drawing his wand. He could feel the growing magical disturbance, a sinister presence radiating from the 7th floor. He passed panicked students, some screaming, some fleeing, others frozen in terror. As he rounded a corner, he saw it. The hallway leading to the room of requirement was filled with chaos. Students were dueling with masked figures, curses flying everywhere. And there, near the entrance to the room, stood Malfoy, wand drawn, apparently fighting alongside the Death Eaters. Malfoy, you bastard! Harry roared, feeling a surge of pure, unadulterated fury. He'd put his trust in him, and he'd been betrayed. He launched himself into the fray, a whirlwind of furious, efficient magic. Expulso, he bellowed, a blast of light sending a Death Eater flying. Reducto, another curse shattered a nearby statue, the debris temporarily disorienting 2 more. He was a blur of motion, his wand a deadly extension of his will. He parried, dodged, and counter-cursed with a speed and precision that shocked even himself. He wasn't just fighting, he was dominating. The knowledge of dark arts flowed through him, allowing him to anticipate and counter spells before they were fully formed. He saw Malfoy send a powerful curse towards a retreating Gryffindor. Malfoy, enough! Harry roared, firing a disarming charm at him. Malfoy, however, didn't seem surprised by Harry's appearance. He blocked the charm with ease, then turned and shouted, Potter! You fool! I'm trying to help. Before Harry could process that, Malfoy fired another curse, this one at the ceiling above a group of Death Eaters. The stone cracked, sending rubble tumbling down, momentarily pinning 3 of them. I told you about the vanishing cabinet. Malfoy yelled over the din, they used it. They're coming through from Borgin and Burke's. But the connection is unstable. I'm trying to sabotage it. Harry's mind instantly connected the dots. Malfoy wasn't betraying him. He was acting like a loyal Death Eater while simultaneously trying to destroy the connection he'd helped them create. The cunning bastard. All right, Malfoy. Harry yelled back. What's the plan? The cabinet is protected by a temporary ward. I need to overload the power source. Malfoy pointed to a flickering dark energy source near the entrance to the room of requirement, the activated vanishing cabinet. I need a powerful energy blast, directed precisely. It's too unstable to Reducto. It needs a pure, raw magical surge. Harry knew exactly what he meant. Fiend fire. A controlled blast of fiend fire would be perfect. But Dumbledore had forbidden it. He looked around. The situation was deteriorating. More Death Eaters were emerging from the cabinet, a steady stream of them. The students and teachers were being overwhelmed. Dumbledore and other Order members were nowhere in sight yet. No time for debate. Stand back. Harry yelled to Malfoy and anyone else nearby. He raised his wand. He felt the familiar, cold presence of Voldemort's knowledge, the precise incantations, the mental conditioning required to control the sentient flames. Flamen animus, flamen infernum, voco te. Harry chanted, his voice resonating with power. The air around him shimmered. A ball of sickly green fire, a living, writhing entity, materialized at the tip of his wand. It roared, desperate to consume. Potter, no. Malfoy screamed, recognizing the spell. Harry ignored him. He focused, channeling every ounce of his will, every fragment of Voldemort's brutal control, into the fiendfire. He pointed his wand at the vanishing cabinet, guiding the ravenous green flames like a hungry predator. The fiendfire shot forward, a concentrated jet of destructive energy. It slammed into the vanishing cabinet with unimaginable force. The cabinet shrieked, a sound of agony, as the cursed fire tore through its magical structure. The wood instantly charred, then melted, then disintegrated into ash. The portal connection to Borgin and Burke's collapsed with a thunderous crack, sucking back the partially emerged Death Eaters and severing the link. The green flames, having consumed their target, roared once more, then recoiled back to Harry's wand. He had to stop it. He mentally pictured the flame extinguishing, returning to the ethereal realm from which it had come. Cessio flamen. Harry commanded, a final, guttural word of power. The fiendfire shivered, shrank, and then winked out of existence, leaving behind only the lingering smell of ozone and burnt wood. A profound silence descended upon the corridor, broken only by the whimpers of injured students and the gasps of awe and terror from those who had witnessed Harry's feat. The remaining Death Eaters, seeing their escape route destroyed and their reinforcements cut off, panicked. Some began to apparate away. Others were quickly rounded up by the arriving Dumbledore, McGonagall, Snape, and other teachers. Dumbledore, however, was staring at Harry with an expression of profound shock and a flicker of something close to fear. "Harry," Dumbledore said, his voice barely above a whisper. "You used fiendfire." "I had to, Professor," Harry said, feeling completely drained, but also utterly justified. "They were overwhelming us. It was the only way to destroy the cabinet and cut off their reinforcements. And I controlled it. I stopped it." Snape stepped forward, his face a mask of cold fury. "You fool, Potter. Do you have any idea what you've done? That is the darkest magic imaginable. You risked the entire castle." "I risked nothing," Harry retorted, a fresh wave of anger washing over him. "I controlled it perfectly. And it saved everyone. Ask Malfoy. He told me how to do it, what kind of power was needed." All eyes turned to Malfoy, who was leaning against a wall, looking even paler than before. "He's telling the truth," Malfoy whispered, his voice trembling. "It was the only way to shut it down without bringing the whole wall down. He asked me what would work. I told him a pure magical destructive force. I didn't think he'd actually use that." Dumbledore closed his eyes, then opened them slowly. "Harry, we will discuss this later. For now, we must secure the castle and tend to the injured." The immediate crisis was over. The Death Eaters had been repelled, their infiltration attempt foiled. But Harry knew he had crossed a line, one that Dumbledore had warned him about. Later that night, in Dumbledore's office, the conversation was tense. "Harry, your actions today were audacious," Dumbledore began, his voice calm but firm. "You used a spell that is considered one of the most dangerous and uncontrollable dark arts known to wizardkind. A spell that has destroyed entire towns. And I controlled it," Harry insisted. "I mastered it. It served my purpose, then I extinguished it. No one was harmed by it except the cabinet." "But the risk, Harry," Hermione exclaimed, who was present along with Ron, McGonagall, and Snape. "What if you hadn't been able to stop it? It could have burned down the entire castle." "But I did stop it," Harry said, his voice flat. "I knew I could. The knowledge was there. The control was there. This is not about what you know, Potter, Snape sneered. It's about what you are. To wield such a spell so casually, so effectively, it speaks of a darkness within you that even Dumbledore seems unwilling to acknowledge. I am not dark, Harry said, a chill entering his voice. I am efficient. I am protecting this school. I am stopping Voldemort's plans. And I am using every tool at my disposal to do it. And that, Dumbledore interjected softly, is precisely the concern. The distinction between using a tool and becoming that tool can be very thin when the magic is so inherently corrupting. This is what I meant by the ethical implications of possessing Voldemort's knowledge. It is tempting to adopt his methods, to justify them because they are effective. What would you have had me do, Professor? Harry challenged. Let the Death Eaters flood the school. Let innocent students be butchered. Tell me what other spell would have destroyed that cabinet with such surgical precision and speed, without collateral damage. Dumbledore remained silent, his gaze fixed on Harry. There wasn't one, was there? Harry pressed. Only fiend fire. And thanks to Voldemort's memories, I knew how to control it. My good intentions, combined with his dark knowledge, saved everyone. But at what cost to your own soul? Snape murmured, his eyes narrowed. My soul is mine, Harry retorted, feeling a profound sense of self-possession. It's not for you, or anyone else, to judge. The argument continued, but Harry found his mind drifting, analyzing the situation with a cold detachment. He had proven his capabilities. He had saved the day. And yet, the very people he fought for were questioning his methods, fearful of the power he now held. It was frustrating. He understood Dumbledore's concerns, and Hermione's. But he also understood the sheer, brutal necessity of using whatever was available to defeat Voldemort. He had walked this path before, trusting Dumbledore's judgment, playing by the rules. And it had cost him serious. No more. He looked at Ron, who avoided his gaze, and Hermione, whose eyes were filled with sorrowful concern. He felt a pang of loneliness. Had he truly alienated them with his actions? The meeting concluded with a tense agreement. Harry would continue to assist in the Horcrux hunt, but he would consult with Dumbledore before using any more extreme measures. Harry agreed, knowing full well that in the heat of battle, such promises were often broken. As he walked back to the Gryffindor common room, a sudden, sharp pain flared in his scar. It wasn't the searing, Horcrux pain of old, but a different kind of ache, a sympathetic twinge. He knew, instinctively, that it was a ripple effect from the destruction of the diadem. And a distant, furious echo from Voldemort. Voldemort knew. He didn't just feel an uneasiness anymore. He knew, with terrifying certainty, that his Horcruxes were being targeted. This was no longer a secret hunt. It was an open war. And Harry, armed with his enemy's own mind, was ready for it. He felt a fierce determination settle in his heart. He entered the common room. It was mostly empty, but a figure was waiting for him by the fireplace. Draco Malfoy. Potter, Malfoy said, his voice low, his face still pale. I heard the meeting. Dumbledore is, considering my protection. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Harry said, eyeing him carefully. You nearly gave me a heart attack. Using that cabinet was a risky move. It was the only way to expose them without revealing my own part too early, Malfoy explained. Voldemort wanted me to bring them in, then oversee the capture of Dumbledore. My job was to disable the wards, not break the cabinet entirely. But I knew you'd understand what I was really doing, eventually. He looked at Harry. And you used fiendfire. Impressive. Terrifying. But impressive. I still can't believe you controlled it. I told you, Harry said, I know things. Malfoy nodded, a strange expression on his face. So, what now? They know about the cabinet. They'll find another way, eventually. Yes, Harry agreed, a plan already forming in his mind. But now we have an inside man. You're still reporting to Voldemort, aren't you? Malfoy nodded. Yes. I have to. He'll expect a full report on the failed infiltration. Tell him the truth, Harry said, a sly smile spreading across his face. Tell him that Dumbledore used some powerful, obscure warding spells to destroy the cabinet, and that your own efforts to secure the perimeter were foiled by his sheer power. Tell him that Potter was barely a nuisance, relying on brute force rather than skill. Malfoy looked at Harry, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. You want him to underestimate you. And overestimate Dumbledore. Exactly, Harry said. Let him think Dumbledore is still the primary threat, the one breaking his Horcruxes. Let him focus his paranoia there. And keep feeding me information, Malfoy. Everything you hear, everything you see, everything you're asked to do. The next Horcrux will be the locket, then the cup, then Nagini. We need to know his movements, his defenses, his resources. Malfoy hesitated, then a grim determination settled on his face. Consider it done, Potter. But remember your promise. My mother. Your mother will be safe, Harry confirmed. So long as you hold up your end of the bargain. And Malfoy, Harry added, turning to leave, try not to get yourself killed playing double agent. Malfoy managed a faint, almost genuine smirk. Same to you, Potter. You look like you're going to give the old man an aneurysm with that dark magic of yours. Harry just winked and walked away, a sense of grim satisfaction settling over him. He had his ally. He had his target. And now, Voldemort knew he was under attack, even if he didn't quite grasp the full extent of the threat. The game was on. Chapter 3, The Final Confrontation. The Great Hall buzzed with whispers the morning after the Death Eater infiltration attempt. Harry sat at the Gryffindor table, painfully aware of the sidelong glances and hushed conversations happening around him. News had spread fast. Harry Potter had used Fiendfire, controlled it, and driven back a Death Eater incursion. Some students looked at him with awe. Others with fear. Just ignore them, Hermione murmured, pushing a plate of toast toward him. You need to eat something. Harry took a piece absently, his mind already racing through the day's plans. The locket is next, he said quietly, ensuring only Ron and Hermione could hear. It's in a cave by the sea. Heavily protected. When are we going? Ron asked, leaning in. Tonight. Dumbledore's arranged everything. Hermione frowned. You're still going through with this? After yesterday? Especially after yesterday, Harry replied, his voice hardening. Voldemort knows we're hunting Horcruxes now. He'll be moving to secure them, starting with the most accessible ones. How can you be sure? Ron asked. Harry tapped his temple. I know how he thinks. His priorities, his paranoia. The cup is in Bellatrix's vault at Gringotts, nearly impenetrable. Nagini never leaves his side. But the locket? It's vulnerable. Hidden, yes, but retrievable. That's where he'll focus first. Hermione looked troubled. Harry, I know you've gained all this knowledge. But sometimes it feels like you're thinking more like him than yourself. Harry stiffened. I'm thinking strategically, Hermione. It's not dark to anticipate your enemy's moves. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant, Harry cut her off, then immediately regretted his sharp tone. The new, colder part of his mind was constantly at war with his natural empathy. He softened his voice. Sorry. I'm just focused on ending this. 2 Horcruxes down, 3 to go. Then he's mortal again. Ron cleared his throat. So, what's the plan for tonight? Harry glanced up at the staff table where Dumbledore was conspicuously absent. Dumbledore and I will retrieve the locket. You two need to keep an eye on Malfoy. Make sure he's safe. Malfoy? Ron nearly choked on his pumpkin juice. Since when do we care about Malfoy's safety? Since he became our inside man, Harry said flatly. His information has been invaluable. And if Voldemort suspects his loyalty? He didn't need to finish the thought. They all knew what happened to traitors in Voldemort's ranks. As they left the Great Hall, Harry felt a familiar presence approach. He turned to see Luna Lovegood, her expression dreamy but her eyes sharp. "Hello, Harry Potter," she said in her sing-song voice. "Your aura's changed. It's quite striking." Harry blinked, wrong-footed as usual by Luna's directness. "My aura? It used to be mostly gold, with little flickers of red when you were angry. Now it's gold shot through with crimson threads. Like you've absorbed something powerful. Quite beautiful, in a dangerous way." She tilted her head. "Rather like keeping a heliopath as a pet." Harry exchanged glances with Ron and Hermione. Luna had an uncanny way of seeing things others missed. "Thanks, Luna," Harry said awkwardly. "I think." "Oh, it wasn't a compliment," she replied, twisting her butterbeer cork necklace. "Just an observation. I'd be careful if I were you. Powerful things can consume you if you don't remember who you are." She smiled brightly. "Well, bye then." She skipped off, leaving Harry staring after her. "Mental, that one," Ron muttered. "No," Harry said quietly. "She sees things we don't." The day crawled by. In potions, Harry found himself absently correcting Slughorn's instructions, drawing on Voldemort's encyclopedic knowledge of dark brews and their antidotes. In defense against the dark arts, he had to physically restrain himself from demonstrating the proper counter to a particularly nasty curse when Snape deliberately taught an incomplete version. Finally, evening came. Harry met Dumbledore in his office as planned. "Ready, Harry?" Dumbledore asked, his blue eyes studying Harry's face carefully. "Yes, sir. I've briefed Ron and Hermione. They'll keep an eye on things here." Dumbledore nodded. "Good. Now, tell me again about this cave's defenses." Harry closed his eyes, accessing the memories that weren't truly his. "The entrance requires a blood sacrifice. Inside is an underground lake filled with inferi, reanimated corpses. In the center of the lake is a small island with a pedestal. On that pedestal is a basin filled with a potion that causes intense pain and forces the drinker to relive their worst memories. The locket is at the bottom of the basin. The potion can't be vanished, transfigured, or bypassed. It must be drunk." "Gruesome but thorough," Dumbledore mused. "And your solution?" Harry opened his eyes. "The potion needs to be consumed, but nothing says it can't be consumed by a conjured entity. I know a spell that creates a temporary familiar that can drink it without suffering the psychological effects. Then, we take the locket and fight our way past the inferi using fire. They fear it more than anything." "Fiend fire again?" Dumbledore asked with a raised eyebrow. "No," Harry said quickly. "Regular fire will do. The inferi are highly flammable and easily confused by multiple flame sources." Dumbledore seemed relieved. "Good. Then let us depart." They apparat to a windswept cliff overlooking a churning sea. The air was salty and cold, and the waves crashed violently against the sharp rocks below. Harry led Dumbledore down a treacherous path to a small opening in the cliff face, barely visible in the fading light. "Blood magic first," Harry said, drawing a small knife from his pocket. "Just a drop." He pricked his finger and smeared the blood on the rough stone. The entrance shimmered and widened, revealing a dark tunnel that led deep into the cliff. "Lumos," Harry murmured, his wand tip igniting. The light revealed a narrow passageway that sloped downward. They descended in silence, the only sounds the distant crash of waves and their own quiet footsteps. The air grew colder and damper the deeper they went. Finally, they emerged into a vast cavern. A black lake stretched before them, still as glass, reflecting the eerie green glow from a small island at its center. There, Harry pointed. That's where the locket is. We need to cross without disturbing the water. There's a boat. He looked around, then spotted a small indentation in the rock. Here. It's invisible, but a specific touch will reveal it. He placed his hand on the seemingly empty air above the indentation. A ghostly green chain materialized beneath his fingers. He pulled, and a small boat rose from the depths of the lake, barely big enough for two. Voldemort designed it to hold one powerful wizard or two weaker ones, Harry explained. He didn't account for me having his knowledge but not his magical signature. Clever, Dumbledore said. Shall we? They boarded the tiny vessel, which immediately began to glide silently across the black water. Harry kept his wand low, illuminating the surface just enough to see their progress. Beneath the glassy surface, pale shapes moved, the inferi, waiting. Don't touch the water, Harry whispered unnecessarily. The boat bumped gently against the island's shore. They stepped out onto the smooth stone and approached the pedestal. On it sat a basin filled with an eerily glowing emerald liquid. At the bottom, just barely visible, was a golden locket. Now for the conjured familiar, Harry said, rolling up his sleeves. This was complex magic, but the knowledge flowed from him easily, a well of dark expertise he'd never studied yet somehow mastered. He moved his wand in a complex pattern. Animus Horeo Temporalis. A shape formed in the air, fluid, ghostly, vaguely human-shaped but without distinct features. A golem of pure magical energy. Command it to drink, Harry said, maintaining his concentration. Dumbledore looked disturbed but nodded. Drink the potion, he commanded the apparition. The golem floated to the basin and began to consume the glowing liquid. As it drank, the figure writhed and shuddered, mirroring the agony the potion was designed to inflict. But with no mind to torture, no memories to pervert, the golem simply continued its task mechanically. When the basin was finally empty, Harry released the spell with a flick of his wand, and the golem dissipated like smoke. Dumbledore reached down and retrieved the locket. It's a fake, he said immediately, weighing it in his palm. What? Harry grabbed the locket, a surge of fury rising in him. He flipped it open. Inside was a small piece of parchment. He read it aloud, to the Dark Lord. I know I will be dead long before you read this, but I want you to know it was I who discovered your secret. I have stolen the real Horcrux and intend to destroy it as soon as I can. I face death in the hope that when you meet your match, you will be mortal once more. R.A.B. R.A.B. Dumbledore repeated, frowning. Harry's mind raced through the catalogue of Death Eaters and Voldemort's associates stored in his brain. Suddenly, a name clicked. Regulus Arcturus Black. Sirius's younger brother. He was a Death Eater who disappeared mysteriously. Voldemort assumed he'd lost his nerve and been killed trying to leave. But apparently, he betrayed Voldemort in a different way, Dumbledore mused. The question is, did he destroy the real Horcrux? Harry's scar prickled. We need to get back to Grimmauld Place. That's where it would be, if Regulus managed to take it home. A disturbance in the water interrupted them. The surface of the lake was rippling, and white hands were beginning to break through. They sensed the tampering with the basin, Harry said, raising his wand. We need to leave. Now. Dozens of inferi were emerging from the water, their dead eyes fixed on the intruders, their waterlogged bodies moving with unnatural coordination. Harry raised his wand high. Incendio Maxima. A ring of fire burst from his wand, surrounding them in a protective circle. The inferi recoiled, their milky eyes reflecting the dancing flames. The boat, Dumbledore said, gesturing toward the small craft. Quickly. They edged toward the boat, Harry maintaining the fire circle around them. As they stepped into the vessel, more inferi emerged from the far side of the island, cutting off their escape. Harry felt the cold calculation of Voldemort's strategic mind kick in. Ignis Spiralis, he shouted, swirling his wand above his head. The fire responded, forming a massive spiral that expanded outward, driving the inferi back into the water with unearthly shrieks. The boat began to move, gliding back across the black water toward the entrance. The inferi followed beneath the surface, pale shapes trailing their progress like ghastly shadows. As they neared the far shore, the water erupted. Dozens of corpse-white hands reached for the boat, trying to capsize it. Harry and Dumbledore both cast fire spells, creating a blazing path through the grabbing hands. They leapt from the boat the moment it touched shore and sprinted for the exit, fire spells lighting their way. Behind them, the angry horde of inferi gave chase, their inhuman moans echoing through the cavern. They burst through the entrance and out onto the narrow cliff path. Harry spun around, pointing his wand at the cave opening. Colloportus Maxima, he shouted. The entrance sealed itself with a squelching sound, trapping the inferi inside. They stood for a moment, catching their breath in the cool night air. "Well," Dumbledore said finally, "that was more exciting than I had anticipated." Harry almost laughed at the understatement. "We need to get to Grimmauld Place. If Regulus hid the real Horcrux there. They apparat directly to the front steps of number 12. Harry burst through the door, startling Creature, who was shuffling through the hallway. "Creature!" Harry called, a sudden realization striking him. "Regulus Black, did he ever give you a locket? A golden locket that he asked you to destroy?" Creature froze, his bulbous eyes widening in shock. "How does Harry Potter know Master Regulus's secret?" he croaked. "I know many secrets," Harry said impatiently. "The locket, Creature. Where is it?" Creature's face contorted with emotion. Creature, open and begin the next chapter. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.